Welcome to Green Building Matters, the original and most popular podcast focused on the green building movement. Your host is Charlie Cicchetti, one of the most credentialed experts in the green building industry and one of the few to be honored as a LEED Fellow. Each week, Charlie welcomes a green building professional from around the globe to share their war stories, career advice, and unique insight into how sustainability is shaping the built environment. So settle in, grab a fresh cup of coffee, and get ready to find out why green building matters.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the next episode of the Green Building Matters podcast. Once a week, I get to interview a green building professional somewhere in the world. And today I've got Heidi Creighton with us. She's Vice President of Sustainability at Skanska USA. While they're a global leading green contractor, they also do a lot of real estate. And so I can't wait to kind of see this side of the house. And Heidi's a LEED Fellow, and I can't wait to hear more about her story. So Heidi, coming to us from Los Angeles, how you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me, Charlie.
Well, I know we're connected in different ways, and today's just about your story. And feel free to tell stories. But take us back. Where'd you grow up and go to school?
Great. So I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. This is probably well known for Grater's ice cream and for Cincinnati chili. If you haven't had it, look it up, check it out. And yeah, I was really fortunate in high school. I got to take some drafting classes and some architectural and design classes and got really jazzed about it. So decided to pursue architecture. I even did a mentorship program when I was in high school. So shadowed a professional at that time and ended up applying to, about 5 or 6 schools, but I got into Rhode Island School of Design. I thought that sounded like a really fantastic experience, which it was. So I went to RISD for 5 years and I got my Bachelor of Architecture degree there and then decided to move down to New York City. That was a pretty easy move from Providence down to New York. So yeah, just started my career at a firm there called FX Collaborative.
Fantastic. So, all right, get the architecture degree, get into New York City. I love New York City, even though I'm based in Atlanta, Georgia here. When did sustainability start showing up? Did you have an aha moment later in your career, like I'm going to do this as part of my career, or was it in some of the early design work you were doing? Yeah,
great question. I was actually really lucky working at FX Collaborative. They were really at the forefront of sustainability. I mean, this is, I'll date myself, but I started there in 1999. So this is like early 2000s. And they had a lot of really fantastic speakers come speak. Yes, I'm probably not saying her name quite right. From Biomimicry came and spoke to us. Bill Reed came and spoke to us. And as you probably know, Charlie, right, he was really a founding member of USGBC and helped create the LEED rating system. So he came and talked to us about LEED. And so a colleague and I signed up for the LEED AP test and took it. And that was really fortunate because we had a client that we were working with called Durst Organization. And as soon as I got my LEED AP, they came to us with a project and they wanted to pursue LEED certification for that project. And that was actually the first voluntary LEED project in Manhattan. And way back then, it was also a paper submission. If you even knew they did, I'm sure you knew, Charlie, but some listeners might not even know it used to be paper submissions before they had LEED Online. So that project really opened my eyes and really changed the trajectory of my career. It was just so exciting for me. And I think Charlie too, especially once the building opened and we were able to give tours and really show people what a sustainable high-rise building looked like, you could just see all those light bulbs going off and everyone was just so jazzed about it.
Then the rest is history. Actually, that was a little before I got into LEED, but I have heard that it wasn't very eco-friendly. You had to send in a whole bunch of paper submittals to Washington, D.C. and have it reviewed. And then, of course, now LEED Online and 1,000 PDFs, but how far we've come.
Indeed.
So what about mentors along the way? Sometimes a mentor could be someone you have access to or just someone maybe you watch their material, you read their books. I don't know. Did you have any mentors along the way?
Absolutely. Mentoring and being mentored and mentoring is so important for all of us. But yeah, so I'll talk about experience at FX Collaborative again. So worked under an incredible woman. Her name was Elizabeth Finkelstein, and she was actually an architect from the former Soviet Union. And she came over to the US in the early 80s, mid-career. And she was basically the director of the commercial studio in the the senior technical lead for the studio that I was in. And she just took me under her wing. She taught me so much about, how to design and draw and execute a building and a project. And she just gave me so many opportunities and really believed in me, even when I was quite young, and just gave me a ton of opportunities. And I would say for anyone throughout all of your career, please mentor or look out for mentors. It goes both ways. There's always room to learn and to be inspired by others, and even from your own peers, right? It's a small industry, a small world. There's so much great work, and we need to be partnered up on everything we're doing to create the most sustainable spaces, and mentoring is a huge piece of that.
Well said. Thanks for sharing some of your early mentors. All right. So how'd you get from New York City, connect the dots on the career, to Los Angeles, East Coast to West Coast? What was going on there in your career?
Always wanted to be in California. That was a lifetime goal growing up. I had some family in California whenever I visited. I just thought this is where I want to land. So ended up coming to Los Angeles. Just super exciting city with so much potential and access to the ocean and the mountains. Really love being outdoors and in nature. So it seemed like a great city with great opportunities, but also fantastic access to nature. So that was why LA won out. And worked for an architecture firm my first year out here, but then was approached by someone who was building sustainability consulting group. And so I just jumped at the chance. I thought, because of the project I mentioned, it was really, I could tell that was where I wanted to focus my career. So I jumped at the chance of that. So that was probably 15 or 16 years ago, Charlie. So did quite a bit of sustainability consulting, working across scales, across projects, a lot of different client types. And that's just been extremely fun, and getting to work on some incredible projects throughout that.
I mean, your WELL faculty, FitWell ambassador, maybe the healthy buildings came later, but a LEED fellow, and congratulations there. And I know they're locally, right? The USGBC LA chapter, and, on the board. So, what caused you to want to get involved there with your local chapter? And can you speak to volunteering a little bit?
Absolutely. So, I think volunteering and being nonprofits that are aligned with your own values is so important. I think those nonprofits like USGBC, AIA, ULI, et cetera, there's so many great ones out there, are so mission driven, and they really can help connect you with other people, give you speaking opportunities, help you build up your network. And then also to just all of that volunteering, it feels so good, right? To be giving back in that way. And honestly, some of my closest friends I've met through these organizations, just because great people that they draw in great people who want to do impactful work. And so you'll find great people by doing volunteering.
Absolutely. And AI coach too on the steering committee. Okay, so take us from a lot of sustainability consulting to, maybe your next firm, and then bring us to present day. So just how did you navigate that? There are some companies you've worked with for many years.
Yeah, so I've been at Skanska for the past 7 months, and I'm guessing we'll talk about that a little bit more, but I'll reflect back a little bit. So for the 11 years prior to that, I was at Bureau Happold and got to work on some incredible projects there with my friends and colleagues there. Just as an example, got to work on the countywide sustainability plan for Los Angeles County. It was the first one of its kind, and that was an extremely impactful project. There's 88 cities within LA County. There's 10 million people that live in LA County. So actually 1 in 33 Americans lives in LA County, which is pretty mind-boggling to think about it that way. But really, our goal was to really create a bold and inclusive vision for the future of the county that really prioritized not only the environment, but also equity and economics as well. Yeah, we did incredible stakeholder engagement with that. We had hundreds and hundreds of attendees and lots of organizations, and we worked with the community-based organizations to really pull everybody into these stakeholder workshops and really listen. And so many of the comments that we heard and collected directly informed the plan. That was that was a pretty gratifying kind of, once in a career type of project to get to tackle. So that was a highlight.
And let's expand on that. So yeah, I'd like to just ask, as you look back, what are some of your other proudest accomplishments? What else stands out?
Let's see. I also got to, in 2018, I got to go to Panama through Bridges to Prosperity, a nonprofit, which is an incredible organization. If they're not on your radar, please look them up. But they're all about basically just creating pedestrian footbridges to connect people with education, with healthcare, and with job opportunities. So they partner with firms who help fund it. And they also work with the communities who really are in need of these river crossings, because a lot of these communities can be quite isolated, especially during big storm surges where, you get to the water and maybe that family can't cross to take their kids to school, or they can't get to their job that day to make money for their family. So that was an absolutely incredible experience, very empowering, and extremely meaningful to go help this very remote community in Panama and help them thrive for future generations.
Wow, I can tell you love that work and more to do there. You've got several credentials, and I love interviewing a LEED fellow. So you got yours 2018, I got mine 2020. So just what has that meant to you to have that honor?
Yeah, so meaningful. And I think you mentioned it earlier too, my FAIA that I also got in 2021. But both of those, to be recognized by our industry for the work that they've done and the impact that my work has had on our industry and on the world, is extremely meaningful. It's really humbling to be recognized in that way. And it was really, really satisfying to go through the process too and reflect back, right? I mean, I think so often we're just running, go, and looking forward. So to take some time to reflect back on what you've accomplished in your career is worthwhile.
No, thank you. Thank you for sharing. All right. So why don't you get us to present day? Tell us about your role at Skanska and what's keeping you busy today.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, 7 months in my new role at Skanska. So really excited to be on the owner side and advocating for sustainability within and from the, really the ultimate final decision-making entity. So as you mentioned in the intro, I head up sustainability for commercial development arm of Skanska here in the US. So I'm really, making sure that we've got initiatives and policies to really drive sustainability across our whole US portfolio. And we operate in Boston, Washington, DC, Houston, Seattle, and Los Angeles. And we develop mostly office and multifamily residential. We have a few labs in there, but we just started up in the US for commercial development in 2009. And our track record has been very successful. So there's going to be definitely more investment in the US and more growth, which is exciting, but also, we've got our zero carbon goals that we need to attain. So I need to make sure that we are on the right trajectory for that. So that's a big part of my role, Charlie. Reporting is a big part of my role. So we report our quarterly basis, our carbon. So I need to report that up to our global team. We do GRESB reporting and CDP reporting. We feel that, operating really sustainably, but also very transparently is hugely important. And then thinking beyond environmental goals, really passionate about health and well-being, diversity and inclusion, resiliency efforts. So kind of, the wider sustainability umbrella, super exciting. And there's just so many opportunities there. So, we pursue well or fit well on all of our projects. We actually have a diversity and inclusion consultant that we're using on our projects to really kind of enrich our clients and the communities that we're working within and engage them in really meaningful ways, right? Where they're really impacting our projects. And also to just really advocating for some of those social equity tools that are out there. So some that I'm particularly interested in are the EJ toolkit that AutoCase released earlier this year. And then also too, there's a really great toolkit, Charlie, called Design for Freedom, which is all about really addressing child and slave labor in our projects. And at Skanska, we have a supplier code of conduct and our own code of conduct that we are committed to, and we have all of our contractors and subcontractors sign on to this. However, I think there's still a lot more work that we can do to really kind of look under the hood with a lot more scrutiny.
We do some other work with Skanska, and I've reviewed that, and I'm impressed by the code of conduct. So I've had to sign that over here. A couple follow-ups there, Heidi. I guess I worked for Opus Corporation a long time ago. It was the developer, the design team, the contractor, the property manager, all in one house. Here on some of your projects, maybe how is it working with the developer and the construction team a little more integrated? Is that able to give you an advantage there as there's changes? Give us a peek into delivering a project there where you kind of have two of the main components on the same team.
Absolutely. Yeah. So our building team builds everything that we develop. They also work for a lot of other clients as well. But yeah, it's a great partnership. And, because we're under the same umbrella, the same company, right? We have the same carbon commitments. So we all need to reach those goals together. So there's a lot of collaboration and early partnership on those projects, which is really just mutually beneficial, right? Where it's not combative, right? We're work for the same company and on the same page with where we need to be and where we want to get to. We see it as a great opportunity, and also too, for us to really kind of continue to push the envelope and test innovations, right? And be guinea pigs, and then have our builders build it. We Skanska co-developed the EC3 embodied carbon and construction calculator tool, and that's been hugely impactful for us. And also too, it's a free tool that's open to anyone who would like to use it.
Yeah, and we should talk about that. Embodied carbon. What kind of product types, what kind of building types are you and your team focused on right now?
Mostly office and multifamily residential. We do some labs, I think mostly on the Boston area, but looking for opportunities there and in all of the regions that we develop in.
One more, we're post-pandemic now, thankfully. Healthy buildings, you mentioned it's not just programs like LEED and green buildings and decarbonization on the West Coast, electrification. I'm sure you're baking all that into your California projects, but healthy buildings, do you still really have to justify both? Let's do LEED and well, or LEED and fit well. I mean, how are those conversations going? Are they easier these days?
Luckily, Skanska was committed to all of those things, even pre-pandemic. Okay. So we were already doing well and fit well, having really good filtration rates and ventilation rates. We develop our buildings and then we need to get them leased, right? Either by office tenants or by the residents. And then we typically divest our projects quite quickly. So maybe a year or two after they've been completed, then we sell them to investors, right? And then that frees up the capital for us to move on to the newer projects. So with that in mind, and those customers in mind, sustainability, resiliency, health, and well-being have been top of mind. And the team here really gets that and sees the value in it, as so do, right, the tenants who want to be moving into that space, if they're working there to be the most productive they can be. And, I would say with each project, we're having more and more outdoor space too, because we really need to create projects that are commute worthy, right? We need to get people back to work and lure them out of their comfortable homes where they've been working for the last couple of years, make it a better experience to be in the office for them, to really entice them to come back to work. So luckily, a lot of the legwork that Skanska's been doing over the past years pre-pandemic have set us up well.
Yeah, lots of those healthy amenities. So I'd love to ask this next question as we look to the future. Let's say you had a crystal ball. What's next? What are you reading up on, or what are you excited about? What's next in this green building movement?
That's a great question. I mean, as you've seen, right, there's just so much increase around ESG and funding around ESG, which is super exciting because I feel like you can't have a sustainability conversation without ESG or decarbonization coming into the conversation. But yeah, obviously embodied carbon and building electrification are huge initiatives of ours, really getting those MEP systems electrified and seeing where there's additional opportunities, maybe even around commercial kitchens to electrify those as well. We do a lot of the third-party certifications, and there's a project right now that we have in early design that's tracking zero carbon certification through ILFI. So that's extremely exciting. But, I think we've got a little bit of kind of, carbon fever right now. There's so much focus on carbon. So I want to make sure that we're not losing sight of all of the other aspects of sustainability. So, climate resiliency is a really important topic for us. I know, as we're seeing in the headlines on a weekly and daily basis now, right? It's here, and it's here with a vengeance. Social equity, human-centric design, hugely important, right? Buildings are for people, and we need to make sure that we fully understand the impact of our projects on the communities and the globe. And also circularity, right? And really thinking about designing waste out of the entire design, construction, end of life process. I think those are some key areas. I think, transparency, data collection, huge areas that need to be tackled. And we really need partnership in all of this. When we divest our projects, we would love to have the data from those projects, from the investment companies that buy them. But sometimes that's a more difficult conversation and people don't want to share. So I think just collectively, we all need to really work together to be more transparent and be willing to share more of that data so we can all learn and continue to improve.
Well said. I second all of those things, Heidi, you mentioned, because everyone listening, this is happening, but it's also going to be the next several years here as we work towards, especially those 2030 targets for states, for countries, for companies. So, all right. So a few rapid fire questions here, Heidi, to get to know you more. What's your specialty or gift?
Oh, that's always a tough question. Okay. I would say probably just kind of leading with empathy, being a good listener, really trying to connect people together. I think in our role as sustainability experts, we are constantly asking people to change, right? We're constantly pushing the envelope and change their business as usual, right? And just generally people are adverse to change, right? So you've just got to really kind of figure out maybe for each organization or individual or department or whoever you're working with, right? And really understand what are their priorities and goals. And then how can I frame sustainability around that and align it with what they're trying to accomplish? I think you just have a lot more success when you really kind of frame it in a way that resonates for them and what they're working on.
Love it. Do you have any good habits or routines, rituals?
I do try to get a lot of good sleep. I try to eat healthy. During the pandemic, I was just sitting in front of my computer a lot, like all of us. So we got a dog. So I walk her every day, and just live in a beautiful community that has a lot of nature. So just try to stay connected to nature and do a lot of hiking and camping and being outdoors. That also really keeps me healthy and well.
Do you have any favorite hiking trails or anything like that near you?
Oh gosh, I don't know if I have one. We try to do a wide variety. So we do go up to Malibu quite a bit, Angeles Forest or San Bernardino. But yeah, but the wildfires have definitely impacted our access to some of those forests, which is devastating.
And you and I have talked about air quality and on the summer, not just the transportation, but the fires.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about bucket list. I'm a fan of the bucket list. I don't know, Heidi, what are one or two things maybe on your bucket list? Any adventure or travel, or you want to write a book? It's on the bucket list.
Oh gosh, yeah, travel for sure. There's just so much beauty in this world that I would love to see with my own eyes. Yeah, I would. Northern Lights is high on my list. Oh, but one other thing, Charlie, that I would love to do, being a Southern California girl, I would love to go surfing in the morning and then go snowboarding in the afternoon and do that in one day. So I haven't done it yet. I've talked about it for a while. So you've inspired me. Maybe I'll make it happen this winter.
Oh, you got to do it. That's a cool one. I've not heard that. I have one that's watched the sunrise on the East Coast and the sunset on the West Coast in the same day. So
I like that.
Thanks for sharing. So just a couple more questions as we wrap up. You've had this amazing green building career, and now you're developing some awesome projects with just sustainability and healthy buildings just baked in, and it rolls up to Skanska's, own ESG mandates. Just, hey, let's do the right thing here. So I just applaud you on all that. Is there anything in your career, though, you wish you'd have known a little earlier?
Good question. I think, be proactive. Don't sit back and wait for others to kind of carve the way for you. Really listen to your gut and make sure you're fulfilled in what you're doing. If you're not, you should probably make a shift, right? We spend way too much time working to not be fulfilled by what we're doing. And just maybe lead with empathy in everything that you do. The world will just be a better place if we all have that lens and approach our work with that lens. There's just so much good and important work to be done. So follow your heart and your gut for sure. We had the mentorship conversation earlier. Don't be shy. Reach out to people. And, I think, sometimes a more formal mentorship program works, but I have found throughout my career, I think a more organic mentorship relationship has usually worked out better. But when people reach out to me for advice, I'm always willing to go for lunch or go grab coffee. I think people are generally pretty happy to kind of dole out some advice. So reach out to people that you'd like to get to know. And as we discussed earlier too, volunteer, get involved with those local nonprofits who are doing great work, and get those credentials, get them early. Public speaking, I think also, Charlie, is another tough one, right? I think a lot of people, that makes them uneasy, myself included. But, when you really start to get yourself out there and practice, it gets easier and easier. So would definitely encourage everyone to start public speaking as early as you can, and just have that confidence and know that you are the expert in whatever you might be speaking on.
A lot of nuggets of wisdom in there. Well, Heidi, as we wrap up, last question. Let's say someone's listening to this podcast. They're getting inspired by your story, and they're just now jumping into the green building movement. Maybe they're a young professional, or maybe they're making a career change. I don't know. Any words of encouragement as they jump in?
Oh my gosh. There's so many articles, so many reports, so many great podcasts. Listen to all of Charlie's podcasts. Just get a really good perspective on what's happening. Look at what's happening around the globe, look at what's happening across the US and in your local jurisdiction, and just really think about that and where you feel like you could have the most impact for a more sustainable future.
I love it. Everybody connect with Heidi on LinkedIn. Keep tracking the great work that Skanska is doing. And Heidi, thanks for being on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me, Charlie. It was a pleasure talking to you.
I just want to say thank you to our loyal listeners. We actually are celebrating over 1 year here on the Green Building Matters podcast. Me and the entire team were stoked and just so glad you continue to listen every Wednesday morning to a new interview with a green building professional here in this industry, or just some pro tips that we want to make sure that you are getting straight from us, straight to you. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Green Building Matters podcast. At gbes.com, our mission is to advance the green building movement through best-in-class education and encouragement. Remember, you can go to gbes.com/podcast for any notes and links that we mentioned in today's episode. And you can actually see the other episodes that have already been recorded with our amazing guests. Please tell your friends about this podcast. Tell your colleagues. And if you really enjoyed it, leave a positive review on iTunes. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on next week's episode.